We are starting to build our services, and the first of them will be Logger. Let's take a look at our Docker Compose file and see what parameters we need. Build. This is our Docker file, in which Node.js will be raised and all configs will be transferred. We'll look at the Docker file a bit later. Volume. We are required to link the static files of the service with the Docker container. We also bind the port, network, and we still need environment variables that we will use in our service: env, service name, common path, port, host, Mongo URL, secret, rabbit URL. Everything can be found in the global environment file. The Docker file is responsible for the service build. In Docker, compose is a parameter, build. The build has two arguments, context, arguments. The context is the path to our Docker file. Since the Docker file is on the same level as our Docker Compose file, we just put a /. Arguments are passing the environment configuration to the Docker file. Let's go to the Docker file and see how our service will be built and what is needed for this. And so the build starts with the from parameter, where we specify the version of the JS node. ARG, creating variables in the Dockerfile environment so that we can use them. Their implementation will be seen below. env, we assign keys in PM2 for system monitoring. We will consider this later. Run, calling a Linux function, we can pass any command and it will be executed as soon as the container is created. Workdir defines the path where the service will be stored inside the container. CMD executes process start using package.json. Pay attention to lines 24, 25, 26. In order for us to use dev and prod modes, we must install software inside the container to start processes. Before building our logging service, we need to set up the package.json and env files. Let's open the logger directory and the package.json file. Here we need to specify the correct common. Let's copy and paste. Next, we will go to the local configuration file and register our PC communication between services. Since the logger service will send the message only to itself, then we need to specify only the name of the logger service in the action. There is one step left before building the logger service. This is the installation of npm. Let's install npm locally in our directory. Open console and type npm install. We are waiting for the installation to finish. We check and see that a new directory of node modules has appeared, which means that the packages are installed and we can build our service in a well-known way. We check in the Docker interface. We see that everything is fine and our service has started. Let's check in the browser. We open the browser and enter the local host with the port that we specified in the config. We see the page loading in our default 404 error handler, which means our service is installed and ready to accept any requests. Let's also check in Rabbit for the created queue channels. Let's open the Rabbit interface in the browser and check. Now let's check the database. We should see a log that shows the successful launch of our service. Let's open the admin in a browser and connect to our database as we did earlier. We connect to the database and see we have a table. Go to it and see our record with the fields that we have described in the table. We will look at the model with fields a little later. Now we are convinced that the database is working and the microservice is completely ready for development.